your erudite displays will keep people watching, so don't worry. Right, so we've come around to 6:30. So I think we'll start, everybody. So welcome to all participants who are watching the third Melplash Show webinar, following on from our two very successful ones in November on property and farming related matters, and then the entertaining horticulture one. And as I said at that one, what we're trying to show is it's almost like we're going around the show, although I shall tell you about that later in a different format. So having been into the horticultural tent, we wander across the Jack Norman field and we have arrived in the food hall. Obviously a highlight for a lot of people coming to the show, enjoying themselves, seeing all the things that are in the food hall. Now, obviously, it's not quite like that. So instead of actually the exhibits being there and being able to chat to the exhibitors, what we've got instead for you tonight is 4 extremely knowledgeable and in some cases very well-known experts on all things related to food and wine, and indeed beer. Let's be clear, it's food and drink of all descriptions. So I'm going to get them to introduce themselves, just a very short biography of each of them, and then we will start and we'll explain what we're going to do and how the format of this is to run this evening. As before, if you want to ask questions, or those who are watching, do send in questions on the Q&A button on your screen, as it were, and I'll pick them up as we go along, as we've done before. So, in no particular order, Edward, a short biography, please.
Thank you, Nigel. So my name is Edward Berry, resident in Dorset. I've had I guess a 40-odd year career that's exclusively in food and drink. Hotel management. I was in the wine business for many years, looked after the marketing of quite a well-known New Zealand wine called Cloudy Bay, launched that around the world. I was CEO of a tea company called Newbie Teas, and I was director of a very large farm shop enterprise in Shropshire called the Ludlow Food Centre. So since I moved down here, very involved in food in all sorts of things, small producers, farm shops, delis, and I'm on the board of Dorset Food and Drink. That's me.
Luke?
So good evening, my name's Luke Machin. I work for Palmersbury. I've been here for 15 plus years. Prior to that, either side of some traditional academia, I've worked in hospitality in various roles, front of house, back of house, kitchens, general dog's bodies, all sorts. Prior to joining Palmer's, I worked at the Riverside that was down in West Bay as a chef initially, and then later I got into wine whilst I was working there. That was the first time I got involved with buying, selling wine and tasting wine. A role came up at Palmer's in retail, which at the same time I was moving further away. I didn't fancy split shifts, and it fitted very well with how I wanted to develop an interest in wine. And I've been here ever since. I do quite a few different things with Palmer's, but in the last 12 months, concentrating on retail and particularly developing our online sales under COVID-19 has been the emphasis. Fairly proud, so I'm almost unqualified to do any of that, but thank you very much for having me anyway.
I think Luke, you're very qualified on all sorts of things, and particularly in relation to the booze department, which is what you're here for. Justin.
Hello, my name is Justin Tunstall. I'm a Lyme boy, although I now live in Charmouth. I went away for 30 years in the media and music businesses and came home 11 years ago and opened the Town Mill Cheesemonger. And taught myself about cheese with the help of a bunch of other people. And since then, we won a bunch of awards. The shop closed almost 5 years ago now, but I've been a columnist for Specialty Food magazine, mostly writing about the cheese business. I'm on the organising committee of the British Cheese Awards. I judge cheese awards all around the place. Global Cheese Awards, International Cheese Awards, the pan-galactic ones have eluded me thus far. And I do a lot of judging for Taste of the West as well. But what I really like is local produce, and I like finding small local producers.
Splendid. And finally, Tim.
My name's Tim Dommett. I brought up in this area and moved and farmed in Gloucestershire for 20 years on a small dairy farm, and then ran a food and cheese shop in Farnham and Hazelmere for 20 years, specialising in British farmhouse cheeses, mostly unpasteurised. We then moved back down here 10 years ago, and I've run a B&B until the beginning of this year, when, for obvious reasons, it packed up. I'm also heavily involved with the Melplash show in the Discover Farming arena, where we try to educate children where their food comes from, and also try to encourage youngsters to think of agriculture as a career path.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, panelists. So tonight we're going to run it on a completely different format to the ones we've done, or a slightly different format to the ones we've done before. And the overriding theme relates to Christmas Day. Now, all families have their traditional routine of Christmas Day, and I'm sure we all do pretty much the same things every year, albeit, of course, this year we may not be doing it quite the same. And it's on that theme that really we want to run tonight's webinar. And that is really that the panelists are going to talk about perhaps thinking about alternative things that you can do for your Christmas Day menu. So I think we're going to do this in a logical Christmas Day order. So we're actually going to start at breakfast and run the way through the day. As I said, do ask questions as we go along. We'll probably take the questions on each part of the alternative Christmas Day menu. So, gentlemen, over to you. I'm going to leave it to you, and then we'll see how the questions come, either between you, the ones I've already got, or as questions come in. So I'm open to you. Who wants to start on their alternative Christmas Day menu? Justin.
Hi, I'll step into the breach. I don't know, many people are a little bit weary of doing the same thing for Christmas breakfast, which is what I'd like to just talk about first. And so a couple of things I've come across that I particularly enjoy. And the first of which is from Capriolas, their smoked duck. So instead of smoked salmon, I propose that you have a little go at smoked duck. Here I paired it with, very good, pear cheese from Global Harvest, who are up near Shaftesbury. And that is a rather fabulous preserve that just goes with it beautifully. It's got the aroma and texture of pear, and it's just delicious. On Christmas Day, when I have time, I'll be making sourdough and buckwheat blinis. But today, I'm just going to eat it as it is.
Good start, Justin. I would say to anybody who's watching, we will be having a list of all the producers on the Melplash website, so you don't have to worry if you don't catch who's producing what and what it relates to. So we'll pick that up later. So there we are. Oh, we are modern technology. That's what we're talking about.
We got the pear preserve. Yeah, lovely. And hopefully the duck packet. If not, I can wave one.
Well, whilst that is happening, and Justin, Edward, move on.
Dive in.
Okay.
During Christmas morning is an interesting one. You've got all sorts of people running around, but I think everyone needs a little bit of substance. So I've gone for two options with the same base. So one, it's all based around, which is the Swiss or the mountain grated potato, and whether some people parboil them and then grate them, and some people just put them into a frying pan and gently fry them, and it all cooks and gets lovely and crispy. Some people add a bit of onion, and then you sort of turn it over. So you've got a cake, which is fairly straightforward. But I've got two options on that. One is smoked salmon, which is again very traditional. We've got some very good producers in the area. So there you are. There's a picture of it. And Chesil Smokery, people might know Chesil Smokery in just outside Bridport. They make a very good smoked salmon, which I'd recommend. There's also some gentlemen who started growing mushrooms in Chiddock. They call themselves Chiddock Champignon. And mushrooms on this works really well. These guys are real characters, and they're producing. They create the substrate, which is the base on which you grow the mushrooms, and they have all sorts of interesting varieties. The picture there are some pink oyster mushrooms, and they're doing a really interesting job. And it's very it's a very sort of earthy job, earthy business, and you can go and visit them, and they're very interested in people coming and learning what they're doing, because they're also looking at medicinal impact of mushrooms. So anyway, for eating, we've got mushrooms on the rosti, or smoked salmon on the rosti. I think would be delicious.
Tim?
Yes, well, I'm on the rusty theme as well. With it's a bit like a Spanish breakfast, using a capriolas air dried ham, which is delicious, and or their copper, which comes like this, and with a crispy fried egg. Quite simple, really. I don't know if Edward. Oh, there we are. There's a picture of it. I tend to, when I grate my potato, I tend to grate it into water and rinse it out, and you tend to get rid of the starch, and then put it into a tea towel and squeeze the bejesus out of it so that there's no moisture left, and then put it into a dry dish with chives and salt and pepper or whatever. And then
it was Tim, one of the invention tests on MasterChef the other day.
Really?
You're making a rosti. Yes, it was.
Now, did they put it in water or not?
No, they didn't put it in water, but they did, as you quite rightly said, get rid of all the starch and the water out of the potato by putting it through and squeezing it through some muslin or a tea towel.
I mean, the essential things are that it's cooked,
Yeah.
And that does take a little bit of patience, and that it's seasoned, and that it forms a cake.
Yes.
It just sort of falls apart, and I think that's where everyone finds their own solution.
Yeah. Yes. No, I find that works well for me anyway. And another idea I came up with was, where is it? It was eggy bread with some, very nice Denhay bacon, and caramelized apple, which went very well. Oh, there we are. Sort of just frying the apple off in a bit of butter and oil, and maybe with some cinnamon, just to spice it up a bit. It also worked very well with black pudding, which makes a nice combination.
Delicious.
So that gives the people lots of ideas of alternative things. Luke, we've got all that food. We need something to wash it down with.
Something to drink. I think it's customary to have something fizzy on Christmas morning, maybe with breakfast, maybe before, maybe afterwards, right through till lunch. There are all sorts of sparkling wines all around the world that could be, and champagne is obviously something that people might spend some money on at Christmas, but it's a great opportunity to try some of our local fizzy wines. I'm sure everyone has seen in the papers Langham Estate won a very prestigious award recently. Langham, for those who don't know, is just past Puddledown, going east. They won the Sparkling Wine Producer of the Year at the International Wine and Spirit competition. So there's a big international competition. All of their wines are graded, and then they take an average of the wines, which qualifies them to be shortlisted. So this is a big international award. I think it's fantastic for them, but also it really puts West Dorset on the map as an area that produces world-class champagne method, traditional method sparkling wines. We have Langham, the other side of Dorchester. Our local producers here are obviously Furley Estate in Solway Ash and Bride Valley in the Bride Valley. I think if you've not tried any of them, buy one and try it, because they're exceptionally good quality. They have individual styles. The Furley, particularly classic cuvee maybe as an example, has a quite luxurious style. The Bride Valley is a little bit leaner, but I would urge anyone, they're all worth the money that they are. They're exceptional wines, and they stand out. So an opportunity to splash out and try something else.
Okay, so we've it's amazing how time shoots on with us. There was some Furley Estate as well. Let's move on, if we may, because we've now had breakfast, and we've had our glass of Furley or Langham, and so somebody's now hard at it sorting out the main meal. So, gentlemen, should we pass on to that? Edward, perhaps start?
Well, yes, the honest truth is that in my household, we are very traditional. And we do tend to go the turkey route. We are going to get ours from Boffin Hill growers. Anita and her husband Chip grow organic vegetables up on just outside Bothenhampton. And that's been a joy for me, is to get to know her and the whole process of growing turkey. She said this year's been an interesting one because people have asked for small turkeys. And she said, I found it really hard to stop them from eating. But the turkey is a turkey, and it goes on doing what it does, which is eating until it comes to its end. So that's quite an interesting challenge. So I am very much a traditionalist, and I'm sure the others I know have come up with more recipes for alternatives. Although, I'll leave them to that.
So we've gone with the traditional. Tim?
Well, I thought, people might have somebody coming who's vegetarian, so I came up with a dish which was a mushroom and butternut squash en croûte. It's something I've done in various guises in the past, but if using butternut squash, I mean, you cook all the ingredients. There you are. You cook everything before you wrap it in pastry. So you're frying off the butternut squash. You're almost making a mushroom duxelle by putting it in the processor and chopping it up with some onion and garlic and a little bit of chili if you like, and frying it off in a pan just to dry it out with some peppers, and then goat's cheese, a nice hard goat's cheese in the center. The pastry I tend to go for is a pastry called a Linotrip Pie Pastry, which is almost a flaky pastry, and it's so easy to make. You just bung everything in the processor and pulse it so that you've still got flecks of butter. Put it, then bring it into a ball, put it in the fridge for half an hour, and then roll it out, and then put your pie together and put it in the oven for half an hour. And it works very well. It's also a good summer dish which you can have cold as a picnic, because you can griddle aubergines and courgettes and peppers and onions and all sorts, and mozzarella and pesto, but that's 6 months down the road, isn't it?
I've already got a question in, Tim, for you. Just on that, somebody's just emailed in just a bit more about the pastry. What's so special about the pastry that you're talking about?
One, it's very simple to make because everything just goes straight into the processor. It's slightly flaky. It's just as a basic recipe is 180 grams of plain flour, 120 of butter, a pinch of salt, and a teaspoon of sugar, an egg, and a little bit of milk, and that's it. And you just blitz it, and I've made some mince pies this afternoon actually, and they're sort of quite nice and sort of flaky and light, and the pastry goes nice and crisp, and so I use that for everything basically. Well, most things anyway, but delicious.
And a second question's come in, which is purely an informative one, which I did mention earlier. All of the information is going to be on the Mel Clash Show website. For those who missed that, you don't have to worry about getting your pencil or paper or tapping into your mobile phone or screenshotting or doing anything else. It will be available on the Mel Clash website. So look up on the site later on once Lucy, the show secretary, has organised that. So Justin, over to you, I think.
Thank you. Well, in my time, I've been a non-meat eater, although I eat meat now. And I've also been a shopkeeper who's been exceptionally busy on Christmas Eve. So a long time ago, I abdicated responsibility for helping on Christmas lunch. And the upshot of that was that we started to go out quite a lot on Christmas lunch, which is a nice thing to do locally. But this year, we're going to be eating at home. But if we do have a vegan or vegetarian guest, rather than cook in parallel and add to the stress, I thought Tierra Kitchen in Lyme Regis, who deliver to Bridport, and you could collect from them in Coombe Street, do a really interesting vegan and vegetarian menu. And the item that I would probably choose from it is their sunblush tomato and ricotta cannelloni. Quite a lot of fuss on it. And so I wouldn't want to be doing that while also preparing a bird or a piece of beef or whatever. And I really rate them. I popped by their kitchen today and it smelt absolutely divine. The other idea to save labour, particularly for those who've been enjoying Luke's fizz earlier in the day, is having something lighter than Christmas pudding. Christmas pudding can be great, but certainly for my middle-aged digestion, it's not that great. And I found some rather lovely puddings made by Lizzie Bakingbird, who I'm sure you've seen in the food tent before now. She pops up all over the place. I know this weekend she's at the Dorset Food and Drink Christmas Fair in Weymouth at the Fort, Noath Fort, I think it is. And she'll also be in Bridport, I think, before Christmas. But you can pre-order these, and she does rather lovely clementine cheesecakes, individual ones, and chocolate and mint mousses. And having had a lot of her stuff in the past and then had to go on the running machine to work it off, I can testify to its tastiness. Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions here that come in. Any ideas, gentlemen, about if you're not having turkey, what other bird would you really support or think is good? A lot of people like goose, etc., but other people find it difficult. Any thoughts about alternative birds, or indeed alternative meats as the main part? The question is alternative meats as the centerpiece of Christmas lunch.
Well, for just two people, we often just buy duck. You can cleave a duck in two, very easy. Goose is quite an investment, I think. And you do lose a lot of volume in extracting all the rather fabulous goose fat, which can keep you going for roast potatoes for quite some time. But if you are down to a very small number, my best suggestion for a bird would be duck.
Edward.
I was good. I'm on the goose hunt. I think goose is great. It is quite different. Anyone who hasn't cooked it needs to be going with their eyes open. It doesn't have big legs like a turkey, so you are relying very much on the breast meat. As Justin said, the fat is a big part of it, and you do need to break the skin and let the fat run through, and you keep that fat. That is absolutely, as Justin said, it's a joy to cook roast potatoes in. And the good news is you can stuff a goose. It's got two cavities. The thing to bear in mind is that your yield is low. You know, they are expensive, and you don't get anything like the volume of meat that you do. But it's an excellent meat. It's too gamey. It tastes better than dog. You've got lots of nice flavors, and I absolutely recommend goose. And I think one of the dangers is if you have, we are trying to remember this is a celebration, and therefore the things that we are cooking are not what we cook every day. And with no disrespect for the meat eaters, for beef or lamb or chicken or other birds, goose is an absolute, it's a sensational occasion, and I think I would definitely recommend it. And there are great recipes around.
Sorry. Tim. We've got a little difficulty with Tim. Justin, you're going to come back again.
I was just putting a thumbs up to Edward's comments on the goose, really. I love cooking goose. It's great fun. But yeah, you do end up with a lot less than you started out with. A bit like going to Las Vegas.
The issue regarding goose or cooking goose has obviously stimulated some of the questions here.